race fans. Welcome to another episode of Short Track Guys Podcast, brought to you by ShortTrackExclusives.com. I'm your host, Thomas Battis, alongside two other Short Track guys in the studio tonight, one being remote on the phone. First, Jim Pokrant, driver of the 07 CanQuitFishing.com sportsman here locally at Five Flag Speedway and 2021 sportsman champion in Pensacola, Florida. And Ted Baber, remotely on the phone with us tonight. Ted Baber Video Productions, also locally here in Pensacola, Florida. What's up, guys?
Good evening, sir.
We've got a lot of news, and we're going to follow up with the World Series of Asphalt. It's the 55th annual at New Smyrna. I think we touched on about halfway last Wednesday, and they ended up going through the weekend. I think Saturday night was the last night with the Supers, the Pros, Tour-type Modifieds, the Florida Modifieds, and we've got some champions to announce. We've got some great racing. We've got some highlights that we're going to put up on our Facebook page. But first, we're going to stay local for just a little bit and get with Jim and his sportsman progress, getting ready for the 18th and 19th, which is actually a big weekend here in March, locally at Five Flag Speedway. Jim, what's going on with that sportsman car?
Oh, just making body parts. I got my quarter panels done, got the tailpiece fitted, got the fuel cell done. Now to run brake lines and fuel line, and then run some wiring. I should have my motor back tomorrow, at the latest Friday, and get it set in there and then bolt everything to it. So probably by this time next week, hopefully the thing will be sitting there running and we'll be able to know where everything is. And the generosity of Tim Bryant said he's not going to have a regular practice, but he's going to make it reasonable for the local guys to come out and make some laps. So we're probably going to rent the track one afternoon and go out and make some laps and see how she does. And we'll be ready for the 18th. Hopefully we'll win the season opener. Haven't done that yet, but we're going to give it a hell of a try.
Right. You got new sponsors that are coming on board this year?
Well, we picked up Victor Herm at Premier Window Tinting. Go see him for all your window tinting needs. The man is just phenomenal when it does window tinting. He does everything from Porsches to pickup trucks. So give that man a try. He does a lot of good work. He's a patriotic American, great guy. Known him since high school. I want to thank him for coming on board. Of course, Can'tQuitFishing.com. My other buddy at Emerald Coast Remodeling and Trim. We're all high school friends. And, of course, All Pools with Rich Bonneberger. He stepped up already before the season started. I want to thank him. And we're going to have some fun, man. This is going to be pretty cool. And hopefully, maybe sometime this year, we'll have some exciting news, maybe about the Wheelman Series next year, or, maybe some, something more for me to do. So I'm just going to throw that hint out there. And also this weekend, they had the Sweat Hog Grand Prix. I know we didn't mention it. It's a 4-cylinder front-wheel drive enduro race. Takes an hour and a half to run, and they make a road course at Five Flag Speedway. It's a blast to do. We need to get more people to come out and watch it, but it's a fun little race. I've been in it. I encourage you to look it up online. It was on Racing America. They actually filmed it. So take a look and see what you think and build you a little 4-cylinder junk car and have some fun.
Right. And tell us a little bit more about that Sweat Hog race. What is it? What's going on out there?
It's 4-cylinder front wheel drive, bone stock. Daryl Lynchard won this year. Congratulations to him. He outlasted everybody for an hour and a half. My buddy Frank Keller was running up front, and he broke his Acura, so that kind of stinks. But it's 4-cylinder front-wheel drive, bone stock. You got to have a 5-point harness. You got to have a helmet. You got to have a fire suit. Well, you don't even have to have a fire suit. 4-cylinder front-wheel drive with a helmet. I recommend a fire suit. I recommend at least a roll bar in case the thing rolls over on you, because they're running close to 80 miles an hour down the front straightaway. So, but I recommend it. But it's a fun little race, and it's just supposed to be for junk. And get out there and run till you pop tires and have a great time.
Yeah. Well, I know you're excited about the season coming up and having that experience with the front wheel drive. It's a road course, correct?
Yes. You come down the front straightaway and you go through the quarter mile, and they've got some pretty cool little divots. It's a neat deal. I've done it. It's fun. I'm telling you, it is a blast. You'll get that thing with the biggest grin on your face.
Yeah, ask Stevie Mercer about what it feels like to roll one.
Yeah, he rolled it and then went on to win the race last year. but except for this year, but he wasn't there this year, so that was kind of crazy. While I'm thinking about it, I want to give a shout out to a gentleman who we've lost in the last couple of weeks. His name's Larry Rice Sr., a gentleman that just loved racing, was always at the racetrack, always had you laughing, was just a good guy to be around, positive attitude constantly. He just started racing four-cylinder cars, and he was killed in a motorcycle accident. I want to give a shout out to him and his family, let you know we're thinking about you, and I know where Larry is. He's in heaven because he's a great man, and we're going to miss him.
Thoughts and prayers.
Well, we're going to get ready for the season opener, 18th and 19th of March.
It's going to be a blast.
It's going to be a blast, and you're going to get out there on a Friday night, and then we've got a big race, the East Series, I guess, our Arca Menards East Series race. It just got through with New Smyrna this past week.
And Daytona.
In Daytona, but yeah, that's I guess the East and West Series is the old K&N, and then I don't really know how they put everything together and run Daytona, because it was I don't know. Maybe Jim can explain how all that works.
I think they run the East and the West, and the big tracks like Daytona, everybody runs. But I don't really care for the way the Arca Menard Series is run. Actually, I'm going to voice my opinion. The way the Arca Series used to be, there was no East and West. There was, in the Arca Series, they ran all over the Midwest. They ran Daytona, they run Talladega, and they have a national champion. Well, now it's because the Cup teams are funding it and NASCAR is taking it over. They've ruined it because you don't have anybody just running in that series. You had guys that were there to learn and move on, and then you had guys like Frank Kimmel and Will Kimmel and a bunch of other guys that ran that series.
The Venturinis,
but they're with Kyle Busch and a bunch of the Gibbs guys. The Venturinis are now, because they run Toyotas. It's all gotten to the point where if you're not Cup affiliated, you don't have a chance. And it's sad because they've ruined it. The cars are all cookie cutter. They're slow. They're crate engines basically, but you don't need that in a big series like ARCA. They should run built motors. Go back to the days when a guy could buy an ARCA chassis, put it together in his garage and come race, kind of like the old truck series. You could buy a truck, put it together, put it on an open trailer, tow to the local short track that ran the Craftsman Truck Series, and you could make the race. The series has gotten ruined. It's all now about the Cup teams and how much it's about building up young drivers. It's not about, the competition of the ARCA series where you had the ARCA champion was the ARCA guy from, Indiana that raced a small team, like the Venturinis or the Kimmels, or, there was dozens of teams. Now there's not anymore. They're barely on the local shows. They're lucky to get 15 cars. That's sad.
Yeah, they didn't have very many cars last year at this race in locally. It was like maybe 10 or 12.
Yeah, I think there was 12.
Yeah.
And that's sad. It's just, I hate to say this, and I'm going to say it, and we're not a NASCAR affiliated, so they can kiss my behind. I don't care. But NASCAR, everything they touch, they ruin. Honestly, they're
bringing too much money, and money floods into the system, and people just think they can buy a championship, and unfortunately now you can't.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's ARCA used to be about talent and drivers. Now it's about how much money can you bring and whose team are you going to drive for. DGR Crosley, are you going to drive for? And they're all Cup affiliated. They're all kind of like super late model racing has gotten with like Donnie Wilson. These Cup teams are paying big money to put these kids in these late models so they can have something to do till they find something else for them to do.
Well, Sammy Smith ends up winning the ARCA race at New Smyrna, and you would not be surprised after what we just got through that he was in a KBM car. And the KBM, for everybody that's listening out there, is Kyle Busch Motorsports.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of substance with that conversation that we can go on and on and on about. But it is for the younger drivers, but some of them that come from maybe the Truck Series and maybe Xfinity would come down and we're going to go touch on this too with the Super. We had 200 lap races down there at New Smyrna this past week, and you wouldn't be surprised really if somebody comes in and wins both of those, and we'll get into that. But
well, Sammy Smith is a talent. It's not about, he doesn't have as much money as some of these other guys got, because he should already be advanced by now. But that dude can drive. Him and Chandler Smith and guys like Bubba Pollard, they put on a show.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there for the money. They're there to race, and that's the kind of racing I want to see.
Right, and that's why we cover short track racing. We don't cover NASCAR or the Xfinity kind of, the Cup cars, Xfinity and the trucks. I mean, trucks maybe a little bit because we see some of these guys coming from the super late model ranks, maybe modified ranks like Ryan Preece and getting into that series. But we're short track guys, and we stick to the short track guys locally. Regionally and nationally. Sometimes we'll go global and go outside of, our country, go to Canada and do some of that stuff. This is where really we're sticking to the grassroots, where these kids are coming from and they move through. And you think about a William Byron that comes in and runs that late model race down in New Smyrna and wins the big ones. Yeah, okay. But he wasn't in a KBM car in the super late model. So now we go back to episodes ago when we talk about youth and talent.
Yep.
He's not as young as he used to be a few years ago when he got started. But he goes and he steps into Donnie Wilson Motorsports late model and wins the Clyde Hart Memorial and the Orange Blossom 100.
Yeah. Well, you see how much money they dropped. I mean, Exalta was on the car, so there was a bunch of money. I mean, but you're talking about Donnie Wilson. He's one of the best in the super late model business.
Right.
Absolutely. He builds great cars, and he always gets the best of talent to drive them, and the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he gets him fat checks, too. Don't get me wrong. We were talking to him at Five Flags not too long ago, and he said you wouldn't believe the amount of money he's making running those late models. And he gets in one every once in a while and does very well himself. So, his cars are, like you said, they're on fire.
So at Donnie Wilson Motorsports, Toyota funded and driver development situation, you think?
Oh, yeah, it is. Definitely. And I mean, it's, you come in with a check and he goes, okay, you'll drive this, and this, and that, and the other. And they're trying to help develop these young guys. But I'm going to tell you something. You go to one of those races with Chandler Smith or Sammy Smith running, you got to contend with Bubba Pollard. You got to contend with Ryan Preece. You got to contend with guys like Stephen Nassy and Michael Hind and these guys that are badass. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Derek Griffin, Justin Mundyke,
yes.
Jesse Love, Brad May. I mean, you could go on and on. The list is just huge.
Oh, yeah. Our boy out of California in the 43 car.
Derek Thorne.
I mean, yeah, and your other boy from the Midwest, the 7 car, I can't think of his name.
John DeAngelis.
John DeAngelis. He's another one that's a threat every time he gets in a car. So, you may be a cup driver and you're coming down to their level, you're going to play in their house and they're not going to, there's no slouching.
Right. So. Well, Sammy Smith ends up winning not only the super late model championship at New Smyrna, he ended up winning the ARCA race. With the KBM. So, I mean, he kind of did his job and due diligence, with the KBM and upholding the Donnie Wilson thing. But, Derek Griffin, Justin Mundyke, Jesse Love, Brad May, they all ended up top 5 with that super late model championship. And then, I think the biggest part of that week, was the pro late model situation with Michael Hind winning, numerous times and, Connor Jones, finishing second, William, help me out, Ted.
Swallowich.
Yes.
Swallow it.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
And then Jean-Philippe Bergeron, I believe we touched on him last week from Quebec. Yes?
Right.
And then Dylan Stovall was top 5 in pro late models. But there was some exciting racing there in that pro late model series.
Dylan Stovall didn't exactly run away with that 5th place finish because Parker Chase was only 2 points behind him. That's one position either way, and that could have swapped.
Right.
So it was really close racing there.
Yeah. I wonder how much money would come into that check being only 2 points behind.
Probably $1,000, a couple thousand.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what was cool, though? Michael Hind won that championship after getting wrecked. Of course, he was outside of Caden. Caden Honeycutt was on his outside coming off of turn 4, and he tried to throw the block, and Honeycutt was there, and they both wrecked. And Michael Hind went home and took his supercar and turned it into a pro and came back to win the overall championship. And I'm going to tell you something. That's a kid that's on fire right now.
Yes.
He won quite a few races of this World Series of Asphalt, and he's been up front. I look for him to come to Pensacola and see how much better he's going to be because a lot of people don't know he's with Stephen Nassy Racing. They're a 2-car team. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know that. And, Nassy even though he's not run particularly great this year, but he's still there. But they're helping that kid, and he's getting really good. The mullet is on that kid. Have you seen him? He's got his mullet flying, and old hair flopping in the breeze. So the old mullet's working. I guess that's helping him some too, I reckon. But Michael Hind is good.
Run with it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you got to consider when he wrecked that car, he destroyed that late model, and they put the other one together, and they come back to win the championship. Yeah, kudos to him and his team.
Well, it's funny you say he's kind of on fire. It's kind of what his paint scheme is on that late model too.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
With the flowing locks out the window and the flames, yeah, he's looking pretty good.
Well, the supers and the pros, and we've got a tech talk that's coming up here just in a little bit, and we're going to make a comparison for our listeners out there about the tour type modifieds and the Florida modifieds, which we've talked about. Modifieds of Mayhem. We've talked about the ground pounders, which is a tour type. Matt Hirschman really through the week looked like he was just going to walk off, and he ended up finishing second behind Jimmy Blewett. Jimmy Blewett won the Tour Type Modified Championship down there in New Smyrna, and these guys lined up with like 35 cars about every night. Yep. And they had a big race down there, and Jimmy Blewett ended up winning the championship probably 4 or 5 nights they were running. I think they had a big one that I don't believe that Jimmy Blewett won it. He might have. I'd have to double check my notes, but those tour type modifieds and the Florida modifieds were down there running as well.
Good show. Yeah, Jimmy didn't blew it. But anyway, that's cool. Those big, nasty, high-powered, wide-tired, bad to the bone, 3 inches off the ground, getting with it modifieds. I like I said, I want to stand next to the track and watch one of them go by. It's got to be pretty dang cool.
Yeah. And they're the 15-inch wide tires that are low to the ground, what we've referred to as the ground pounders. Mm-hmm. Now, the difference, we can just jump into this. Now, we don't have to wait for the tech talk thing, but the difference between those tour-type modifieds and the Florida modifieds, there's a difference between those two modified.
Yeah, I mean, the we'll just do it right here. The Florida modifieds are mainly a stock front snout, like off a Caprice or an Impala. And some of them are metric, but for the most part, they're a stock clip. They run a steering box, they run a drag link, they run a regular sway bar, they run regular stock spindles, they run stock type brakes. They run a 9-inch Ford rear end. Some of them are allowed to run quick changes, which the difference between that is the 9-inch to change the gear, you have to change the whole center chunk out. On a quick change, you got little gears on the back side that are in a cover. You pop the cover off, you put the 2 gears that you want in there, pop the cover back on, put a little bit of gear oil in it, let her eat. Now, the Florida modifieds are a lot highly regulated. They have a body width, body length they can have. Now, the tour type modifieds are just, there's nothing stock about them. It's all custom built chassis. They're low to the ground. They're 700-800 horsepower. The 15-inch wheels, but I mean, all the suspension, the chassis, the coilover shocks, everything that they have to make those cars stick to the ground is insane. And the aerodynamics is another big thing on the tour type cars. The way they're built, they're very aerodynamic. So are the Florida modifieds, but they're a little slower because they're on an 8-inch tire. The ground pounders are on a 15-inch tire, width-wise.
Right.
So that's insane. And those guys, man, I'm going to tell you something. You go to watch any modified of Mayhem or the tour type modifieds, they put on a good show. It's a great class. I'm glad they kept with it because we've had NASCAR modifieds or modified since the 40s. Mainly called them modifieds because they didn't have front fenders. And none of these cars have front fenders. So you got to be real careful when you get close to somebody that you don't tear your car all to pieces because all the suspension stuff will fold up if you wreck. So very interesting cars. And I mean, if you ever get a chance to get out and see them, you live up north, you can see them. We only get to see them once a year down here at New Smyrna during the World Series of Asphalt, which me and Ted and Thomas have agreed that's on our bucket list. We've got to go down there one year and watch those cars.
Right. Aren't those modifieds the same ones they run at Bowman Gray?
Yes.
The Whelen modified series.
Whelen modified series.
They're tour type modified,
yes,
right?
They're tour type modifieds. The Whelen modified series, and here's a funny little thing. You know what Whelen makes? Most of your ambulances and cop cars have Whelen lights. The blue lights and the red lights on ambulances and stuff, and the strobe lights, those are from Whelen. That's who makes a lot of that stuff. Believe it or not, little bit of additional. Yeah, exactly. So if you blue cop behind you, oh, that's a Whelen modified because they sponsor the series. So just next time a cop pulls you over, you'll think about that.
It was a Whelen of arrest.
Yeah. Hopefully there's not going to be an arrest. Hopefully it's just a ticket. But
Yeah.
They're neat. They're fun to watch. They're some of the best in the world. And if you've ever seen the episode of Madhouse from Bowman Gray, they were beating and banging and swapping paint, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I got to mention on this tour modified list of drivers, a little ways down the list, I see a Truex. I'm just wondering, if that's part of the family.
There's a Ryan Truex. He was in the Busch series and didn't do very well. He's where he come from, modifieds. Martin Truex came from modifieds.
Yeah, there were a couple in the Florida modifieds that we were familiar with too. Joe Armandia,
From Texas.
Yeah, and Cody Strickler. There was another one on that list too.
The modified champion this year. What was his name? I can see he owned a car and then he started driving it himself, and I cannot think of his name.
Yeah, I didn't write it down.
He was Yeah, that's okay. He was the champion last year, so pretty cool, man. That's like I said. Those Florida modifieds, if you ever go see him, because usually Augie Grill runs. He's been down to New Smyrna and raced. We know old Augie, so.
Yeah, Augie did run a pro late model race about midway through. Last episode was Wednesday, so I think it was Friday night. He finished middle of the pack, and I don't believe it was the 112 of his stable. I think he probably got invited down to ride with somebody.
Probably.
Yeah, but I was excited to see Augie was in the list, and I'm like, yes, let's do this. Because Augie along with Bubba Pollard, man, we've watched them both just dominate with late models. Augie Grill, of course, 2-time Snowball Derby winner. Bubba, yours is coming, my friend. I'm telling you, just hang in there.
Hang in there,
yours
brother.
is coming. You've won everything else. So you and Augie really can look at each other and say, you know what? A 50-50 thing, you've got 2 snowballs, I've got all this other stuff, but they're 2 of our kind of, I don't want to say heroes, but I mean they're our favorites.
Yeah, exactly. You got to love Bubba Pollard. Anybody named Bubba that's winning races other than Darrell Wallace Jr. in NASCAR, Mr. I finished second and act like a 2-year-old about it. I can't win a race.
Yeah. I made a comment that there was only one Bubba in racing. It was Bubba Pollard. And everybody just bashed me and started throwing me like crybaby tear pictures of. I was like, no.
Yeah, he wins one race because of rain, and they think he's a hero. And he wouldn't have the car he had if he hadn't have pulled that BS in Talladega. That's as far as I'm going to go with that. But Bubba Pollard's our hero. He's my hero, a short track hero. I love to watch him get with it and get after it. So I look forward to the first Five Flags Blizzard race. It ought to be pretty interesting. Yeah. And congratulations to all the champions down in New Smyrna, the World Series of Asphalt. Man, that's no slouch to win that particular deal. Michael Hind and Sammy Smith, man, congratulations, guys. Y'all did a hell of a job, put on a good show. The racing down there was incredible in all of the classes. And it's a track I want to run on.
Yeah, and we look forward to 2022 continuing, like we've mentioned before, that we just don't take a break. I mean, it's one week after another, one big race after another, whether it's on the dirt. We've got that Lucas Oil late model dirt series that's kicked off, and we're going to touch on a lot of more dirt and the sprint cars. Ted, I want to ask you a question, you being remotely on the phone with us. What have you got in store for 2022 as far as the racing goes in your video production?
I'm going to continue the same thing we did before with the in-cars and the tower cams. We're going to just try to catch all the action we can and do as much as we can with the podcast. Try to get incorporate some video, maybe some of the stuff that I'm shooting into our web page and our Facebook page. Try to get some of that put up as well.
Right. How many GoPros or any in-car cameras do you have set up for this year?
2 at the moment, but I'm looking to invest in some more because the excitement's going to be there, and I want to catch it all.
Right. And you got plans outside of just Five Flags or possibly Mobile? We're going to try to get Gina, the owner-promoter of Mobile, and at Houston Motorsports Park put together we've been working diligently trying to get them on board and, get them to kind of put out what they've got going on, trying to help them out as much as we can. But have you got any ideas maybe where you might be going outside of the local area?
Not too sure about anything outside. We'll have to get together with Jean and see what her plans are and see if she has some intentions on doing anything further as far as video production goes. It will depend on scheduling as far as where I can go from here. Plus, with surgery coming up, things like that, I've also got to kind of watch the health situation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's first and foremost. And we're right there with you, brother. We're patting you on the back. We're up behind you and in front of you and beside you. And, everything's going to work out. There's no doubt about that. But we look forward to putting that together. And I think that's going to be really a great episode. And I have Gina Knowles come on, owner, promoter, Mobile International Speedway, and see what they've got going on, and maybe conjunction with everything else in the neighborhood, I would say, with all the racetracks around here, and see what they can do. Jim, you said they're going to do the Outlaws, that Wheelman Series in Mobile?
Well, it's not going to be an official Wheelman Series race, but they're going to run that type of car for a race or two, from what I was understood. So that's going to be neat to watch because those guys put on a show too. The Wheelman Series is one of the best because they limit the amount of money you can spend. You can't rebuild the motors. You can't run high dollar shocks. It's a great series. Can't wait to get involved with that. And we got the SRX series coming.
Yes, that's true. The SRX series, for those, Jim, you could go ahead and just tell our listeners what the SRX series is all about.
Well, it's Tony Stewart started it. It's big horsepower. It's it's a driver's car. You have to drive the car. They're funky looking. They're pretty cool. And this year they've got Hilo Castroneves, Indy 500 winner, Paul Tracy, Marco Andretti, Tony Kanaan, who's also a Indy 500 winner. And this year also, Joseph Newgarden, Indy racer, and Ryan Hunter-Reay are coming in for 2022. Plus, they haven't announced the stock car drivers yet, or the local driver that will be racing at Five Flags, because they always take a local driver and put him in the car. So that's going to be very interesting. But man, the SRX series is a great idea. I hope they expand it a few more races. They're only running 6 races, I believe. But it's really awesome to watch. These guys get it on, and they don't care. They will beat and bang and swap paint and put on a show for the fans. And at Five Flags Speedway, call and get your tickets. I'm going to be in the pits because I got to meet all these drivers and get some autographs. So hopefully everything will go smoothly.
Well, let's just take a poll. We can start with us 3 right here. Outside of maybe a local driver getting involved with that, which is obviously going to happen. We had Doug Kobe last year at Stafford, and we had Luke Fenhouse up there at Slinger that won to get in the race. They were going to have a local driver there, but outside of that, we can start. I'm going to start with Ted. And Ted, who is your pick out of those that we just mentioned to maybe put out in front? Because we're going to get our listeners to chime in and write a comment as to who they think might be the winner.
I'm going to kind of go for the dark horse. I think Newgarden, he's not familiar with the track, but then who is amongst all those out there? I know he's a good driver. It's just going to be a matter of you got to get matched up with the car and get the car matched to the track. We're just going to see what happens.
Okay, so you've got Joseph Newgarden.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, who do you think they're going to pick locally, Ted?
Oh, Lord, I wish it was Bubba. If they could get him there, him or Nasty, either one, I would love to see either one of them. Because you talk about swapping paint, oh, man, that would be fun to watch.
Yeah, but they're not really local. I'm talking about like from our outlaw stock class or somebody, me, for instance. I would love to do it. Hey, put Jim in there, let him go. I'd tear that thing to pieces, but I'd have a blast. I would think somebody, you could put somebody like Cody Brusso in there, or drives the 54 car, and I swear his name escapes me at the moment, but you know who I'm talking about. That kid is talented and always finishes well. And I don't want to see somebody like, and no offense to Jake Finch, but he's got money. I want to see somebody put in that car that doesn't have money and has a lot of talent.
Right.
That's what I'd love to see. Now, my pick to win, I'd like to see Tony Stewart do it because I'd love to see him in victory lane at Five Flag Speedway. So,
well, he won the championship. He is one of the co-founders with Ray Evernham, one of the co-founders and co-owners of the series. So I kind of thought, well, yeah, and that was kind of a bummer. I don't know Tony Stewart. Not really a big fan, no offense, but for him to win that championship last year in their first season, I was kind of thought it was like, I don't know. So I'm going to go out and kind of play on a limb with Ted and say it's going to be one of those newcomers, and it's the other guy, not Joseph Newgarden, but it's Ryan Hunter-Ray. I think I'm going to take him to come in and figure that track out really quick, and because all the cars are the same.
Right.
It's up to the driver, and I'm gonna think that Ted is right. That Joseph Newgarden, because he can figure stuff out. But the IndyCar drivers are going to be good. You know, Tony Stewart, he's an IndyCar. You know, what can't Tony Stewart drive? You know.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm gonna run with Ryan Hunter-Ray.
No, that's a good choice. All those guys are champions at some point in their lives and winners of races. So you know you can throw the dice out there and hold your hand over your eyes and probably pick somebody that would do pretty good. So I'm interested to see, especially when on that old surface sliding around like they're going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're going to have to get used to. I mean, they don't really run any really short tracks. Phoenix would probably be the closest one that I can think of to a short track, but still they know how to get around the ovals as well. So we'll see.
Yep.
Or if they run Bristol.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun deal, and that is the SRX, which is the Superstar Racing Experience, with all those high dollar, big name drivers that are coming in. It's going to be locally here, Five Flag Speedway, on CBS. Going to be televised, which I think is the first ever, to my knowledge, that anything has been nationally televised. So it's going to be a really big deal for Pensacola and kick off the season. Like everybody knows Five Flag Speedway. It's not like it's just a born track, but it's going to be big in this area.
Oh yeah, definitely going to be fun.
So we got everything caught up from what we touched on last week, and Ted, it's, you know, you guys, it's so fun to be here on a Wednesday night, or, you know, on a weekly basis, talking about short track racing and throwing names out there and just having some fun, and, you know, hoping to gather some listeners here and there and kind of keep continuing to grow. And
Absolutely.
Well, you know what? It's your baby. You came up with this, like I said last week, and I'm just happy to be here and able to talk about racing, because, you know, I could gabble on for hours when it comes to this stuff. So I love it. It's fun. Ted, I'm glad we brought you on board, and you know, we're gonna start doing a little bit of history. I got some things, you know, I want to talk about some of the short track drivers and people that made it to the big time and how they got back and how they, you know, like Bobby Allison, for instance. He used to race NASCAR, but he also came and ran short tracks. So we love all that kind of stuff too. We'd love to see some of these guys come down, but now they're making so much money. I mean, why would they? You know, it's not like that. Back then they got a few dollars to come down and race, and they just did it because they love the sport. And that's what I want to see. I want drivers that love the sport.
Well, guys, yeah, go ahead, Ted.
I say kind of a pay it forward thing. You know, they've made their mark, and now they can come back and kind of give back to the sport a little bit. I'd love to see that.
Amen to that. And while we're thinking about it, Ted, let's go, Brandon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, look us up on our Facebook page, Short Track Guys Podcast on Facebook. Leave us a comment. Tell us who you think is going to win in the SRX series here in June. Give you a little bit of time to do some research and maybe see some highlights from last season. And tell us who you think, and make a comment, good or bad. Doesn't matter. We want to hear from you. Jim Pokrant, JBP07 at yahoo.com.
Hotmail.com.
Hotmail.com. Okay. Yeah, sorry. JBP07
at
hotmail.com.
Yes.
Hotmail.com.
Hotmail.com.
Yeah. And Ted Baber at Ted_Baber at yahoo.com.
I'm a Yahoo-ligan.
I'm a Yahoo-ligan. Well, and that's how you can get in touch with either one of these guys. Just send us a message, make a comment. We love it. We'll get back to you, and we will talk to you next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, y'all.
Thanks for listening.